Today, we're diving into the bizarre world of Emperor Caligula, one of Rome's most infamous rulers. You know, the guy history remembers as a power-hungry tyrant with a penchant for the strange. But was he always like that? Today, we're peeling back the layers of time to uncover the man behind the madness. Stick around as we uncover 10 of his weirdest habits that will leave you speechless. Caligula. Born Gaius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, he earned the nickname Caligula, meaning little boots, as a child. This nickname came from the miniature military boots he wore while accompanying his father on campaigns. But this little boots grew up to become Emperor of Rome, and that's when things got really weird. His reign, though short, was marked by bizarre and extravagant behavior that left a lasting impression on history. Caligula firmly believed he was a living god. He didn't just think it. He acted on it in ways that shocked even his contemporaries. He'd strut around in public dressed as these gods, complete with all the accessories. Whether it was Apollo's lyre or Jupiter's thunderbolt, Caligula spared no detail in his divine cosplay. He commissioned statues of himself decked out as various gods and had those placed in temples for people to worship. These statues were not just for show. They were meant to reinforce his divine status. He even went so far as to have the heads knocked off statues of other gods and replaced with his own likeness. This act was both a statement of his power and a way to ensure his presence was felt everywhere. This wasn't just about ego. Roman emperors often linked themselves to divinity to solidify their power, but Caligula took it to a whole new level. His actions blurred the lines between human and divine, making him one of the most controversial figures in Roman history. Okay, picture this. You're a senator in ancient Rome, right? You're used to the whole toga-wearing political intrigue thing. But then, your emperor decides to make his horse a priest. Caligula's horse, Incitatus, was his pride and joy. Incitatus had it good. A marble stall, ivory manger, purple blankets, the works. Caligula reportedly planned to appoint Incitatus as a senator, and even considered making him a consul. Some historians think he might have been using Incitatus to mock the Senate, showing them that even a horse could hold a position of power. Whatever his motives, one thing is clear. Caligula's love for Incitatus was different, and it definitely solidified his reputation as a pretty eccentric ruler. Caligula was a big fan of a good show, and by good show, I mean gruesome and terrifying spectacles of violence. The Coliseum saw some pretty dark days under Caligula's reign. Imagine being a Roman citizen attending the games. Under Caligula, the games took a dark turn. He'd order random executions in the middle of the spectacle, just because. Caligula would pick people from the crowd, sometimes even his own guests, and have them thrown to the lions or forced to fight gladiators. He seemed to revel in the fear and shock of the crowd, using the games as a platform to demonstrate his absolute power. If you thought Caligula's taste in entertainment was a little much, wait till you hear about his dinner parties. These gatherings were the epitome of excess and indulgence. Caligula's banquets were legendary, and not necessarily for the right reasons. They were infamous for their sheer extravagance and the bizarre nature of the festivities. We're talking about parties that could bankrupt a small nation. The sheer amount of resources poured into these events was staggering. Imagine tables piled high with exotic foods, rivers of wine, and entertainment that would make even the most jaded partygoer blush. Musicians, dancers, and even gladiators were part of the spectacle. Caligula had a taste for the bizarre, serving dishes like pearls dissolved in vinegar. This was not just a display of wealth, but also a testament to his eccentricity. Refusing a dish wasn't an option. Caligula was known to fly into a rage if anyone dared to refuse his generosity. His temper was as legendary as his feasts. He even had a ship built specifically for banqueting, a massive barge, practically a floating palace. This vessel was equipped with dining rooms, gardens, and even baths. These weren't just parties. They were extravagant displays of wealth and power, designed to showcase Caligula's opulence and remind everyone who was really in charge. Each banquet was a statement, a declaration of his absolute authority and boundless resources. Power, especially unchecked power, can do strange things to a person. In Caligula's case, it amplified his already volatile personality. The guy was notorious for his unpredictable temper and his penchant for extreme punishment. Imagine living in Rome during Caligula's reign. You wake up every day knowing that the most trivial offense could land you in serious trouble. Caligula was quick to anger, and when he was angry, people tended to die. He ordered the executions of senators, advisors, even members of his own family, often on the flimsiest of pretexts. Caligula seemed to understand the power of fear, reportedly saying, "Let them hate me, so long as they fear me." All right, let's talk fashion. Specifically, Caligula's fashion, which was a little out there, even for ancient Rome. Caligula was a fan of pushing boundaries, including gender norms. He'd often don women's clothing and parade around the palace, much to the shock and scandal of everyone. Caligula would go all out, wearing wigs, makeup, jewelry, the whole 9 yards. He'd sometimes appear in public dressed this way, which, in a society as deeply patriarchal as ancient Rome, was a bold move. Historians debate the meaning behind this behavior, suggesting it was either psychological warfare or a sign of his instability. Whatever the reason, Caligula's cross-dressing was just one more way he challenged the norms of his time. If there's one group that probably wasn't invited to Caligula's dinner parties, it was the Roman Senate. These gatherings were exclusive, and the senators were often left out in the cold. Caligula had a complicated relationship with the Senate. It was a relationship marked by tension and mutual distrust. He viewed them as an obstacle to his power, a bunch of old men clinging to traditions he was eager to dismantle. To him, they represented the old guard, resistant to change and innovation. Caligula chose to deal with this perceived threat by systematically humiliating them. His methods were as creative as they were cruel. He'd make them run beside his chariot for miles, even in the scorching summer heat. This was not just a physical ordeal, but a public spectacle meant to degrade them. He'd force them to wait on him hand and foot during his lavish banquets. These events were opulent, and the senators were reduced to mere servants. He even reportedly appointed his favorite horse, Incitatus, to a senatorial position. This act was a blatant mockery of the Senate's dignity and importance. These were calculated power plays, designed to undermine the Senate's authority and show everyone who was really in charge. Caligula's actions were a clear message. His power was absolute, and no one, not even the Senate, could challenge him. Imagine this. It's a warm Roman night. The moon hangs heavy in the sky, casting long shadows across the palace gardens. And there stands Emperor Caligula, engaged in a hushed, intense conversation. But he's talking to the moon. Caligula believed he had a special connection to the celestial body. He'd spend hours whispering to it, confiding his secrets, sharing his plans, even arguing with it. Sources suggest that Caligula viewed the moon as both a confidant and a rival. In a world where emperors claimed divine lineage and consulted with oracles, maybe a little lunar conversation wasn't that strange after all. Everyone knows the expression, "Don't get mad, get even." But Caligula took that to a whole new level. He sometimes took his frustrations out on inanimate objects, specifically the sea. The story goes like this. Caligula decided to launch a campaign against Britain. Things didn't go according to plan, and Caligula was not happy about it. So he ordered his soldiers to gather on the beach, armed with whips. Their enemy? The sea itself. Caligula then commanded his men to collect seashells, declaring them spoils of war. Family. It's complicated, right? Especially when you're a Roman emperor with a penchant for the dramatic. Caligula's relationships with his family, particularly his sisters, were messy. He had 3 sisters, Agrippina, Julia Livilla, and his favorite, Drusilla. Caligula was unusually close to his sisters, particularly Drusilla. When she died prematurely, Caligula was utterly devastated. He declared a period of national mourning so extreme that laughing, bathing, or even dining with your family was forbidden. He even deified Drusilla, making her a goddess and building a temple in her honor. His relationships with his sisters were intense, unconventional, and ultimately tragic. So there you have it, 10 weird habits of Emperor Caligula that offer a glimpse into the mind of one of history's most infamous rulers. Was he a power-hungry madman, a misunderstood visionary, a victim of his own time? The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in between. Caligula's reign was short, chaotic, and undeniably strange. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the strange habits of Emperor Caligula, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more historical oddities. See you next time.